everybody, welcome to Bad Relationship Advice with Damian and Monika. Real people talking about real issues. Monika, how's it going?
Good. Damian, how are you doing?
Doing okay. I'm excited about today's program. What do we got going on?
Yeah, well, we're just going to continue talking about this soul. And, I thought we could open up the lines to callers today, see if they have any questions.
I know we've always got people writing us, calling in, and we need to really open it up to those people.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe you could start with the first caller.
Okay, first caller.
Is this Damian and Monika?
Sure is.
This is.
Oh my God, I got through. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. Lucky you. I know we've got like 1,000 callers on the line here.
Oh, I love you guys. I look forward to your show all the time.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Monika,
So,
make sure we send this caller an autographed t-shirt, okay?
Absolutely. So what is your question?
So, I'll be listening to you guys' podcast all the time. And I was wondering with the soul, is it something like, so you have all these people, do they lose it? I mean, can you get it back? Or is it something like you lose it, it's gone? You can't,
So
it's gone.
Is the soul, is it like use it or lose it with your soul?
Is it use it or lose it?
Oh man, that's a great question.
That is a great question. Yeah. Can I have your name actually? Sorry, we didn't ask your name.
Oh, of course. My name is Shay from Oakland, California.
Hi,
in the house.
All right, Oakland in the house. Welcome.
All right, Oakland. Yes. Shay, have you ever had a time when you felt like maybe you were losing your soul a little bit? Has it ever happened to you?
It did. I used to work for this company. I worked for this company for about 20 years. So I started, the bottom, kept just climbing up that ladder, climbing up. The money was good. Anytime I wanted to take time off, go back to school, do whatever, I would just get a promotion. They just show me more money.
Oh, interesting.
And I climbed up, I got to as far as being the GM's assistant. So I was assistant general manager. And, the money was good, everything was good, but it got to a point where it got uncomfortable. Like, you walk in a room and people would jump and, they would get uncomfortable. And, at first I didn't pay attention to it at all. But then after a while, it started bothering me. It got to a point where like, at first I didn't. At first it was about climbing that ladder, making that money. And like if in another department, they needed to fire somebody, I was the person they called. So I would go to another department, people I didn't even work with. I was there with the final check. So it got to a point where people were like, oh shit, it's her. It's like, she's here, who's leaving. And what happened with me was weird. My dad got really sick. So when he got really sick, it made me totally stop. Like this whole time, out of school, high school, went to college a little bit and then just, dropped out. The money was good. Why would I go for, spend X amount of money to get this education when the money's already in front of me before? And it's good. And, so when my dad got sick, it made me stop kind of. I just really stopped. It scared me. And it was the first time it just scared me. Like life is going, like, what am I doing? So it kind of brought like the reality, and it was weird because, when my dad's in the hospital and hanging out with him, the only thing running through my head was, and honest to God, all the terminations I did. Like all those people like crying, upset. And for me, just being like, and for me justifying it as, there's rules. It is what it is. You follow the rules.
Right.
We wouldn't be in this situation. So that's what stopped me. And then the only for me was I got out. I quit. I left this like awesome salary, awesome job, just ran away from it. So from then, and that was me. And from then, so when I hear you guys' story, I'm like, well, I feel like I was there. I was right there. I was right at the cusp. And
you were at the brink of losing your soul.
I was about to jump in, and I chickened out for whatever reason. I was right at the cliff. I was about to jump in, about to lose it, and just walked away.
Well, so it sounds like you actually did a very brave thing, I would say.
Right. Yeah, I think most people don't have the strength to look inside themselves and say, you know what, this is not right.
And there's always like the justifications, right? Which is like, you know, these are the rules. This is how things work, right? And so one can kind of hide behind those rules and just say, okay, I'm just following directions, and this is my job, and this is my title, right? But it doesn't sound like he was making you feel very good. And it's interesting that you had the wake up call when your dad was sick, as you said, and then you just kind of decided, okay, I'm just walking away from this. And the way you were being attracted, you know, by it was through money, and you were moved up in the ranks, right? Is what it sounds like.
The money
so
was good.
Uh-huh.
You could buy what you want. It didn't matter. It was almost to a point where like every paycheck you had to buy something. Like
man.
ridiculous.
So that's also interesting, right?
Right, because money is the money can, if you have money, you're happy, right?
I guess you're supposed to be. But at what cost?
What's the missing piece of that? I mean, I feel like we're kind of raised to believe that that's what you want. You want money, you want status, you want to you know, climb up that ladder, and when you get there, man, it's gonna be awesome. You're just never gonna have any problems. Is that true?
It's not. You miss out on so many real opportunities that there was I missed out on a lot of stuff. Like I could say with my dad, I wasn't there. So you lose out on opportunities, and you get there, and yeah, I have stuff around me, but not people.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
That's just something you can't buy. Well, you can buy friends in a way, but it's not like real friends.
If you spend on them, that's how it works. If you spend on them, once you stop spending because you think someone's like, oh, are they taking advantage of me? They're gone. And it was weird because you get to a point where you almost don't like yourself either, because you wouldn't, you know, be friends with you of how you are, how you treat people.
Ooh.
You know what? It was like, I don't even recognize her anymore. I don't know who that person was.
Yeah, it's like you get so ingrained in that company culture, and this is the way we do things. And it's like, wait a minute, what about me? What about how I do things? Is this how I treat people? Like, oh yeah, I can totally. And were you ever like discouraged from feeling human? You know, like, did you ever approach anybody?
No.
Really?
No, was I discouraged from feeling human? Yeah, I was discouraged. I can tell you, you get, you know, for every termination, it was like, oh, you know, high fives. You got, oh, that was a really problem person. Let's move this person here. Yeah, you get a lot of props from management, from people at the top.
Right.
Because you just made it easier for them.
Yeah, and it is a hard job. I can't imagine ending somebody's employment.
Yeah, and you get rooted for. So you think that's, oh yeah, I did what I did, but then
well, it's hard because when you're surrounded by it, and like you say, you get props for it, then it's sort of, sometimes it's almost like, well, you may not realize what is wrong. Like deep down, you may feel this like level of just dissatisfaction with your life, but you're not exactly sure what it is. And sometimes then we get into kind of the consumer cycle, right? We're not feeling very good about our lives. Then we go shopping because what else is there to do? We have this money, and also not having time for your relationships, where you're kind of more and more isolated because of time, and because of, like you said, who you felt like you were becoming, right? So it's kind of like relationships come, take a backseat to making more money. And so it's really interesting. Now, how do you feel now that you've walked away? Do you regret it at all? Do you feel like sometimes you wish you kind of had the job back, or how do you feel about that?
I don't regret it. I mean, the money was good, you know, I'm in a different place now, so it's not the, you know, you're out of your baller status kind of thing, but it's not, it wasn't worth being around just so much artificialness. So in looking back, like with anything, if you look back at any job, I think any one of us has had, you're like, oh yeah, the money, I would like that salary, but with what I'm doing now kind of thing.
Right. So
yeah, no, I mean, and it's funny because it feels like you're there, but your life has no substance. Like you have no substance. There's nothing, everything is so fake, and everybody's on the ride fake. I could tell you, once I got off that train, I can't even relate to some family members because they're on that train.
Oh
of just
yeah.
success. So it's like it changes the dynamics, I think, of your relationships, not just of the fake people around you that just drop like wallpaper. They're just,
Right.
now there's another scene.
You're not a
Those are
part
that,
of
because
that. You're not it's like you're a part in a machine. And once you get replaced, you're not a part of the machine anymore.
you're not. But what made I think where I struggled with, like, no, I would never want to go back to that. But what I struggled with it, I think, is just the dynamics within my family relationships, because, I think part of it, my family's like that. Like my siblings like that. My sister, she's on that train, and I can't push her off of it. You can't take her off of it, but I see her. She's at the cliff, and she's just diving in and out, enjoying it. But you can't. What can you do?
That's a good question. What can you do? I mean, would somebody, maybe not just even your sister, but anybody who's on that path, like, do they need some kind of life-changing event to snap them out of it? Or, are some people just destined to ride that train?
That's a good. I have no idea. That's a good question for you guys.
Yeah.
Did you get your soul? Like, I don't think I lost my soul. I think that I was losing it. I was feeling it slip away, maybe. But for those, like, I can tell you, like, my sister, I think she lost her soul. I mean, can she get it back? Or do you get to a point where you're just so far, like, out of touch?
Right. I think of it as a soul gets put away in a place and then you can't find it anymore. Like, it's there somewhere, but you haven't thought about it, you haven't accessed it, and it's just like it's somewhere in this big house full of rooms with different priorities, but you forgot what drawer it is in. And as you were saying, you're so caught up in the machine that you don't even really think about it anymore until something happens one day and you're like, whoa, wait, what about, if you're lucky. I feel like you're super lucky for, maybe not, obviously anytime difficult circumstances happen, it sucks, but I don't know, I feel like you were kind of saved in a way.
I think so too. Yeah.
And I've left a job that had, that was that same thing, promising future, grooming you for administration and all this stuff. And it's just like, every day you come to work and you're just like, you just feel a little part of you die. And then it's like, it's funny because
that's exactly what that,
you don't,
totally.
and it's like, it's a really figurative way of saying it. Like, a part of me, it's like, well, what does that actually mean? A part of me's dying. But like, you feel like you're only there to keep this machine running, but the machine's not doing anything to keep you running. You're not feeling fulfillment, deep fulfillment. You're feeling like, I made that sale, I beat my competition, I whatever. But it's like, very, like you said, it's superficial. It's hard to describe what's the difference between something that's nurturing your soul and something that's just nurturing your bank account.
It's true. And you get more angry, and you get more, it's almost as if you don't know how to do anything else. Like, this is all I know how to do, and you hate it. You're not a happy person, but whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like then you start to surround yourself with noise and clutter, right? So it's just like clutter when it comes to like material stuff, and always kind of filling up your time. Noise could be like, you can't be almost in a room where it's just quiet and you're still. And I think when that happens, it's like, because we don't want to really kind of face anything or really listen to that really deep inner voice, right? And so I think that's what oftentimes happens. We just look for distractions constantly, to not, like, sort of, to not really listen to this kind of really inner voice that's your being, we can say, in some ways, right? It's just kind of like, and that's kind of, I think, what Damian was saying also, like, it's just sort of, it's somewhere, but you almost can't find it. You have like a vague notion of something like it, but it's like, you don't really know what it is. You just feel maybe kind of like dissatisfied, not really knowing why, and then then it becomes like about getting the next thrill, right? Like, always looking for the next thrill, whether it's like buying stuff or this sense of, I think, one-upmanship. And I think that's a good litmus test for if we're kind of losing our soul, is, when we're always trying to kind of one up someone, whether it's through status or money, and you know they're kind of interlinked in many ways, right? Or even just even intellectual discussions. I think, you know, when you want to be right versus just kind of getting like a deeper level of understanding with someone.
Right.
So there's, yeah, I think
There was a quote I
yeah.
read yesterday about like you can't teach a fool because you can't correct a fool because they'll get angry, but you can always correct a wise man because they'll appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. And again, and that's very much about the ego, isn't it?
Right.
Because it's kind of when you go into something without, you know, kind of having your ego be your primary source of concern, well, then you may actually learn something. You may actually have, you know, appreciate what is around you versus get upset or jealous or whatever because it's somehow more beautiful or more, you know, than you think you might be, or intelligent or something. But there's, I think, also like a sense of appreciation we can have and an interconnectedness with others, you know, and really kind of like the rest of, you know, what
And
surrounds us.
I've heard it defined as like if you're doing something for yourself versus if you're doing something for others, that's like a really easy litmus test for, is this something that's going to nourish your soul or not, right? If it's just for yourself all the time, it just feels empty, you know. But if you're doing something for others, truly selfless things, I don't know. Was there ever a time, caller, that you bent the rules for somebody and felt a little bit better for that?
Towards, you know, what's really funny? It's because most of the time, no, I can tell you. Very rarely. I remember one person that I really, and it's all because I met him, he was young, you know, and he had addiction. So this kid, I try to help, but it didn't look good on my report card at work kind of thing. So I tried to help, and it got to a point. But yeah, I think I found a way to get angry at him, then it's your fault kind of thing. I'm trying to help you now. When it kind of came back to me, and then I just soldiered up, became a robot, as they would call me, and cut the ties.
And I think that's another way to tell, right? Is like where we try to put the blame on everything else, right? We don't sort of kind of, and again, like we were saying earlier, how brave you were to kind of like look inside, you know, and kind of look at yourself in the mirror in a sense, right? Which a lot of people refuse to do, and it's much easier to blame others, you know. And then that creates a disconnectedness, like being kind of disconnected from the rest of, you know, as opposed to having empathy. And I think another thing is just this idea of empathy, which, you know, in this situation that you were in, clearly empathy was not going to get you very far, you know, up this corporate ladder, right? You weren't supposed to kind of feel bad for people. It's their fault. They messed up and they get fired, and that's it, right? Again, the rules. And, you know, and also, but, you know, there's this kind of blind following the rules, but not questioning, okay, who wrote these rules? Who made these rules? Who are these rules really for? Right.
And they make you believe, though, if you don't, though, if you break the thing, it's you or them. You are that person. So I'm gonna protect my job, and I'm gonna terminate you.
Right.
I can't show you empathy. If I show you empathy, or if I try to do anything different, now I'm hearing it, and I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So
it's easier to kind of to assume it's that person and so on, and you know, kind of turning a blind eye to a lot of things, right? In general.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
It makes it a lot more convenient. So I think Damian, you were talking about, there was another quote you had. We were talking earlier off air.
Yeah, this is I heard this from Eckhart Tolle's YouTube channel the other day. He said he was quoting someone else, and he said that when the ego grieves for what it has lost, the soul rejoices for what it has found. So it's like you lose that status, you lose that paycheck, you lose all those things that were, beefing up your ego, but then the difficulty and the challenge and the struggle that comes from that, and the personal relationships that you're then able to form because you've left all that stuff behind, is so much more nourishing for your soul. Kind of grow it back what you've lost.
And also, I mean, just even kind of like the fact that you're able to sort of come on the air and talk about it, I think shows a lot of humility.
I was saying that, I was thinking that too. Like,
and that's also,
you can look back and you see it for what it was, and you can own it, and it's like mad props to you for
thank you
for where you are.
I appreciate it.
It's amazing.
I appreciate that. It's a long road. I still feel bad, but you feel like everything that happens, because I feel I completely think with karma, whatever you give out comes back. So I see it in different forms of like my life, where something will show up. I'm like, this is a lesson. What did I do?
Yeah.
And you start like kind of thinking about, because it does show up.
Yeah, we can't beat ourselves up for things we did in the past. We were doing what we thought was right, or even if we did what we did. It's it. So the best thing you can do is, sounds like what you're doing now, is just doing things the way you feel is the right way. We always look back and criticize ourselves, our former selves, All right. Well, I think we've
wraps it up.
It may just wrap it up. Is there anything else that we wanted to mention?
It's something about, I think, always being aware, trying to be aware, taking a step back, looking at our behavior and so on, being kind to ourselves, being kind to others, right? And
if something feels wrong, don't ignore it.
Yeah. Listen to your inner voice. The thing is, in the end, like a person knows, right? In the end, if there's something a little off, we know, like deep down inside. So it's really a question of just really listening to that inner voice and allowing oneself to do so. And it's hard because it can actually turn your whole life upside down, but it's definitely worth it because, I imagine you don't want to go back to that life, even if you don't have that, even if you're not getting the same paycheck or whatever, then I imagine it's just not, once you kind of wake up, it's hard to go back.
Well, last week's topic was how to sell your soul to the devil. And I think that salary is like payment for your soul in a way.
Yeah.
Dude, the devil didn't take the offer. I couldn't even sell my soul to the devil. I tried. I wasn't strong enough.
All right. Well, Shay, thanks for calling in from Oakland.
Thank you guys from Oakland.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop. Love y'all. Deuces.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling you.
Deuces.
Bye. All right. Well,
that was great. Well, hopefully we can we'll have time to let more callers on next time, or at least in the future. Yeah.
Who knows who else will call us, right? I mean,
great. Yeah, I mean, we get calls from all over the world. This is pretty international.
But it was a definitely good question, and sometimes that's what happens, right? It ends up being a whole episode.
Totally. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us here on Bad Relationship Advice. I'm Damian with Monika, and we will see you next time.